Everyone, very good morning. My name is Prashant. I welcome you all to AWS Architect Training by Edureka. Guys, can you quickly confirm if my voice is audible and is my screen visible to all of you? Yes, fantastic. Couple of people already confirming. Great. Thank you so much for that quick confirmation. So we will wait for another 2 to 3 minutes and then we'll start with our today's session. Okay. Just in case if there are a few more people who are about to join it. So let's wait for another 2 to 3 minutes and then we'll continue with our session. All right. All right. Once again, a very good evening. My name is Prashant. I welcome you all to AWS Architect Training by Edureka. Guys, those who have just joined in, can you quickly confirm if my voice is audible and is my screen visible to all of you? Everyone? Great. Thank you so much for that quick confirmation. We'll move a bit ahead. We will now, in our yesterday's session, we talked about storage on AWS, where we went in detail and understood about different options on S3. We talked about CDN, how things work using CDN. And then there was one more topic which we got started with. That was your storage gateway, right? So what I was thinking is, I was reviewing things before I started out today's session. And what I was thinking is, instead of, continuing with storage gateway right now, let us get started with our module 2, because storage gateway one small topic. So right now I want to start with our module 2, and maybe tomorrow towards the end I will cover storage gateway, right? Because if I start with storage gateway, I'm pretty sure it would create a lot of confusions and stuff that we would need solid 30 minutes, right? I don't want to do that right now because I don't want to keep you guys confused, right? So we will start with our module 2 today. We'll discuss about module 2. Then tomorrow, once again, we'll revisit our storage gateway. If not tomorrow, in one of our upcoming sessions. Is that fine with everyone? Yes. Fantastic. Thank you so much for the confirmation. Right? Thank you so much for the confirmation. So module 2 is all about security on AWS. It's all about security on AWS. So what is security? How your cloud infrastructure is secured? What are some do's and don'ts is what we are going to discuss as part of your module 2, right? Okay, there was one specific feedback requesting to please ensure I read by slides. Okay, so let me tell you, ideally I don't prefer reading slide by slide. Slides are available for you guys to read through. Whatever is there in the slide, I'll ensure it is covered, right? But I like to spend more and more of time on AWS console. Okay, so please don't expect me reading through the slide, because at the end of the day you will be working on AWS console, not on the slides. So I want to make you guys more and more familiar with the console rather than reading through the slides. So please don't get me wrong here. I hope you all understand, right? So all the labs will also be covered along with the theory, but I want to spend more and more time on the console. Is that fine with everyone? With the console, again, repeating the slide would not be possible. The challenge is that Again, repeating whatever I've explained, again, if I come back and repeat that, people will get confused. And I don't want to do that. Okay. So please ensure, please rest assured that whatever is there as a part of your curriculum, it is getting covered. That is something which I can promise you of. Okay. So I request your understanding on this small part. So with that note, I would like to get started with our today's session. So talking about security on AWS. Now, what is your definition of security? I want to understand from you guys before I move any forward. Help me understand, what is your definition of security? What do you feel is the security all about? Everyone. Protection. Okay. What else? Privacy of data. To maintain our data from attack. To protect our data from attack. Keeping the data or information safe and secure. Keeping our cloud devices free from hackers. Making secure things. Okay, making things the secure way. Protecting the apps from malware, phishing, and all of that. Security is nothing but authentication plus authorization. Data protection and integrity, preventing from unauthorized access. No unauthorized person should be able to access our data. Ensuring only relevant people have access. Prevent data from attacks. Fantastic. So many different responses. But securing or security, in a very layman language, can I say, it is a process to ensure your infrastructure, your resources, and your data, right? Security is nothing but a process to ensure your infrastructure, your data, and your resources are threat free. Do you all agree? Your infra, your resources, and your data are threat free. If there are no threats, or even if there are threats, those threats are not, or those threats cannot have any kind of impact on your infra or resources or on your data, right? That is what I consider as a security. Do you all agree? Because so many guys said protecting and all of that. Protecting from what? Protecting from threats. Simple. Saving or securing from what? Saving or securing your infrastructure, resources, and data from threats, right? So now, to understand what are possible threats to your AWS infrastructure, so that we can secure our infrastructure accordingly. Threats, credential robbery. Scenario 1, credential robbery. Credential robbery can be considered as one of the threats to your AWS infrastructure. Because when you try to log into your AWS infrastructure, the login pattern or login behavior is pretty much similar to that of how you log into your Facebook, your Gmail, and all of that. Like if you want to access your Facebook and resources, what you say is you open your browser, you say www.facebook.com, you say sign in to the page, sign in, and you provide your email address and password, and you're able to see all your Facebook resources. Yes or no? That's how your Facebook works or your Gmail works. Now, can I say when I log into my AWS infrastructure, the sign in behavior is pretty much same? Even here, what I do is I say aws.amazon.com. I open my browser, I say aws.amazon.com. I say sign into the console. I provide my email address and password. Right? So if my Facebook credentials are known to you guys, let's say you get to know my credentials, then can I say you can log in on my behalf and you can do anything on my Facebook account? If you guys get to know my Facebook credential, you can log into my Facebook account and you can do anything pretending it to be me, right? On my behalf. Similarly, if you guys get to know my AWS credential, can I say the risk remains the same? Agree with me? Very much yes. So, credential robbery is one of the biggest threat when we talk about our cloud infrastructure. Now, how can someone get to know my credentials? There are multiple ways: via phishing attack, by deploying some malware, snatching data from some GitHub repository or some third-party repository, right? Using all these ways, someone can get to know your credentials. And once they get your credential, they can do anything pretending it to be you. Phishing attack, I hope everyone understand, it is nothing but someone sending you, a hacker sending you a very lucrative email telling that, hey, please log into your AWS account using the below link and get a free AWS exam voucher. Very lucrative. And if you end up clicking on that link and punching your credentials, you never realize someone at the back end is reading your credentials. Deploying malware, someone sending you something on email, you end up downloading that without you realizing that it's a malware. It is opening the back door. Whatever you type on your screens are read as a clear text, by hackers. Snatching data from GitHub repository. A lot of time we are into habit of saving our credentials and stuff in GitHub repositories or any such third-party repositories. If someone gets access to those repository, they can access your resources. So this is one of the threat. Now let's talk about other threats to your AWS infrastructure. Some more common threats. We already covered about phishing. We already talked about credential exposure to the third-party websites, right? Then the third one, exposure of your access keys. Now, what is access keys? Remember, I told you, you can access your AWS resources via two methods. One is using your browser. Another one is using your CLI and SDKs or APIs. When you open your browser and you say aws.amazon.com, it asks you for credentials, yes or no. When you say aws.amazon.com on the browser, it is asking for credentials to allow you to sign in. Now, what is the purpose of those credentials? Why is it asking those credentials? Any thoughts? Why AWS is asking for your credentials? Guys, confirm that is you. So can I say for the purpose of authentication? That is to authenticate you. Agree? So when you log into browser, it is authenticating you using your credentials. Now when I say you can also access your AWS infrastructure using CLI, you can make all the changes which you do on your browser. You can do those changes from your CLI also. So should there not be a way to authenticate you when you try to access your infrastructure from CLI? That should be, right? So your access key and secret access key are kind of credential, that would come into use when you access your AWS resources using CLI. So it has to be treated as safely as your credential. Next, network threats like your brute force attack and your DDoS attack are always a common threat to your cloud infrastructure. Now, what is brute force attack? How many of you guys are aware what is brute force attack? Let's be quick. How many of you understand what your brute force attack is? Yes, no. Okay, majority are not aware. Majority are not aware. Cool, not a problem. Let's understand this. Let's keep technical aside for a moment. Let's keep technicals aside for a moment. Let's assume you have your mobile phone, you have logged your mobile phone with a password. You have not shared this password with anyone. Then you keep your mobile phone and you step away. Then there is a kid at your house, a small kid at your house. What will that kid do? What is the first thing that kid will try to do if that kid get access to your phone? When I say access to the phone, if he gets to see your mobile phone, what is that first thing that kid will try to do? Obviously, kid will try to unlock that mobile phone. Kid will try to unlock that mobile phone by punching some random password. Agree? Kid will try some random combination of password and try to unlock that mobile phone. This is your brute force attack. This is your brute force attack. Now, in real-time scenario, replace that kid with a hacker and replace your mobile phone with your AWS infrastructure or your applications. Hacker will use some script. Hacker will use some script and try some common username and password. Okay, some combination of common username and password to gain access to your resources and your infrastructure. This is what we call it as brute force attack. Are we all clear? Next, talking about your DDoS attack. Talking about your DDoS attack. Let's understand what is your DDoS attack. Okay. So let's assume that I am an organization xyz.com. Let's assume I am an organization xyz.com. I have a server. Okay. The capacity of this server is to handle 10 million concurrent session. Okay. So let's name this. So this is my server. This is your hacker. These are your users. And the capacity of this server is to handle 10 million concurrent sessions. Okay. That is the capacity. Now ideally this server can accommodate 10 million user connection requests. As long as 10 million genuine user connect to this server would respond, right? Now in DDoS kind of attack, what happens is these hackers will have some script. So using the script, they generate pseudo connection or false connection. When I say false connection, using that script, they generate fake connections, right? And these fake connections are generated at this rate, like in span of 1 minute, close to 10 million, 7 million connection requests. Let's say in span of 1 minute, 7 million connection requests are generated. So can I say in span of 2 to 3 minutes, server's capacity would be exhausted? Yes or no? In span of 1 minute, it has generated 7 million connection requests. So in span of 2 to 5 minutes, server's capacity would be exhausted. Now, when server's capacity is exhausted, when my genuine user try to connect, okay, will they be able to connect to the application or to that server? No. they will not be able to connect. If my genuine users are not connecting, are not able to connect, so can I say they are denied of the service? This is what your distributed denial of service is all about. Your DDoS is all about distributed denial of service, not allowing your genuine users to connect and bringing down your server. Now this hacker will continuously generate requests towards this server. Those are all fake connection requests to exhaust the capacity of the server, and eventually all my genuine users will not be able to connect. This is what we call it as DDoS attack. Are we all clear? Now, AWS shared responsibility model. So I want to understand from you guys, when I have my infrastructure in AWS, when I have infrastructure in AWS, right? Who do you think is responsible for the security? You or AWS? Like myself or AWS, sorry. Couple of people says AWS, couple of people says both. Obviously, security, always remember, it is bi-directional responsibility. It is bi-directional responsibility. It is not a one-sided story. Now I'll make this more easier to understand. Let's assume that you have your apartment. Let's assume that you have your apartment in gated community. Who is responsible for the security? In a gated community, who is responsible for security? Both service provider, I mean both your builder as well as the owner of that apartment. Agree with me? Now you might tell me, why, Prashant? Why not only builder? So let me tell you a very simple, example here. If you think in a gated community, it is builder's responsibility to take care of the security, then let me ask you this question. Just because you have security guard standing at the gate of your gated community, just because you have CCTV camera everywhere installed, do you leave your apartment open and leave to your office or go on vacation? Why? Why don't you leave your apartment open? Why don't you go to your, whenever you go to office, whenever you go to vacation, why don't you leave your apartment open and go? Because security guard is there on the gate. CCTV cameras are installed. Because you understand that security is responsibility of both builder as well as the owner. Agree with me? Same goes here. How your builder is responsible for security of the cloud. Your builder is responsible for security of the cloud. You as an owner of apartment, you are responsible for security in the community. Sorry, I've been mixing both. Your builder is responsible for security of the gated community. You are responsible for security in the gated community. Agree with me? Builder will ensure now unauthorized people are entering gated community. No unauthorized people are visiting your gated community, all of that, because builder has deployed a security guard. They will ensure this. But within your apartment, who has to enter, who don't has to enter, whom you want to allow, whom you don't want to allow, it is completely your responsibility. So just like that, security is always a security is always a shared story. Okay, you are responsible for security in the cloud. Your service provider is responsible for security of the cloud. That means what? AWS will take care of the physical data center. AWS will take care of the security of the hardware and stuff. But you will be responsible for your infrastructure, which is hosted on AWS infrastructure. Are we all clear? Please remember, security is a shared responsibility. When you go to any cloud, not only AWS, you take it Azure, you take it Google, you take it Oracle, any cloud, right? Security is always a shared responsibility. Moving a bit forward. Talking about security on cloud, on AWS, there are four ways, four layers we'll be talking about. Identity and access management, detection control, infrastructure protection, data protection. In identity and access management layer, we will ensure right kind of users have access to right kind of resource at right point of time. In identity and access management layer, this layer of security will ensure in your organization, if there are 500 users who are working in your organization, right? We need to ensure right kind of users have right kind of access at right point of time. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, if you have 500 users in your organization, are you going to make all the 500 users administrator of your account? Are you going to give every 500 user, all the 500 users, administrator privileges? No. No, right? If there is a person from a server team, you would want to give permission related to servers. If there is a person from a storage team, you would want to allow privileges only related to storage. If there is a person who belongs to network team, you would like to give privileges relevant to networking. Yes or no? That's how you would want. Agree? Or would you appreciate a person who is part of network team has access to storage, has access to database, has access to server? Would you appreciate this kind of behavior? No. As an organization, I would not want this, because if I follow this kind of practice, then I'm inviting a bigger trouble for myself. Agree? If I don't have proper role-based control, role-based access control mechanism in place, then I am inviting trouble for myself. So to ensure right kind of users have right kind of access to right set of services at right point of time, we can use this identity and access management service. Then talking about your detection control is a service which will allow us to identify some potential security threats, which if not acknowledged timely, right, can lead to a bigger threat on our infrastructure. It is kind of a service which will detect for any kind of anomalies in your infrastructure. Then talking about your infrastructure protection. Infrastructure protection is specifically to protect your web servers and your web applications. To protect from any kind of common web exploits, we have services for your infra, that is your AWS Shield and WAF, which are specifically meant to protect your web servers and your web application from some common web exploits and some common web attacks. Talking about your data protection, no matter if there is any attack or not, how do I rest assured? Even if there is an account on my infrastructure, my data is safe and secure. So this particular service, which is AWS KMS, Key Management Service, and Cloud HSM, right, will help you rest assured that even if there is an attack and if someone is trying to access your data, they will not be able to. This service allows you to encrypt your data and protect your data. This service allows you to encrypt your data so that even if there is any unauthorized user who gains access to your AWS infrastructure, they'll not be able to access your data. Are we all clear? Can I move forward? Only couple of folks are responding. Others, may I request your responses, or should I call out your name one by one? Appreciate it. Thank you. Detection control is nothing but a service which will help you identify some potential gaps in your infrastructure. Bitika. It will allow you to identify some potential security threats, potential gaps, or potential anomalies, which, if not addressed in a timely manner, can lead to a bigger threat. Make sense? Now, talking about security management via IAM. IAM stands for nothing but Identity Access Management. IAM stands for Identity Access Management. Now, what is Identity Access Management? Identities are nothing but we. We users are called as identity. Each of us have our own identity. Prashant, then I have my own identity. You guys have your own identity. Agree? Now, ensuring access to us. Like in my team, if there are 1,000 users, okay, in my team, let's assume there are hundreds of users. So how do I ensure right kind of user have right kind of access is what we manage using IAM. Now, before I start discussing about IAM, I have one quick question and would like to understand from all of you guys. Let's assume that I'm an organization xyz.com. I have some 500 employees working in my organization. All these 500 employees are technical staff. They have their roles and responsibility that they are supposed to work on AWS of my organization, AWS infrastructure of my organization. So I would need your suggestion to understand how many AWS account as an organization I should have. As an organization, how many AWS accounts should I have? I have 500 technical people who wants to work. Think well and then answer. So here comes different answers. Okay. Now let me twist this question. Slightly differently. Now let's assume that I'm an organization xyz.com. Okay. I have my infrastructure in on-premise data center. Now I have 500 users working in my organization who are part of my technical team. So how many data centers should I have? How many data centers as an organization should I have? I have 500 people. I have 500 technical people. One data center. One data center. Right? Then when I ask the same question in perspective of the cloud, why did so many people tell me that I should have 500 AWS account? As an organization, when you create your AWS account, it is like your data center. Just because you have 500 employees, just because you have 1000 employees, you cannot have 500 different AWS account, or you cannot have 1000 different AWS accounts. As an organization, always remember, you will have only one root account, not more than that. In that one root account, you will create multiple user accounts. Just like in our on-premises, we have only one data center, but my 1000 different employees have different accesses to resources in that data center. Yes or no? If there is a person from server team, he is able to access only server. If there is a person from a database team, he is able to access only databases. If there is a person from a network team, he is only able to access networks related details in my data center. Agree with me? But for that purpose, I cannot have 500 different data centers. Understand my point very clearly. So as an organization, I'll have only one root account, and in that one root account, I'll have multiple user accounts. Are we all clear? If anyone still has any confusion, let me know, because I know this is a confusion in everyone's mind. So I'm just here to ensure that you are clear of this, right? So now your IAM deals with 4 major parameters: user, groups, roles, and policies. Your IAM deals with 4 major parameters: user, groups, roles, and policies. Let's understand them one by one. Okay. So on my AWS console, I would say IAM, hit enter. Okay. Now this is what your IAM dashboard will look like. This is what my IAM dashboard will look like. Right now, when I have logged in, this is my root account. I'll tell you how to differentiate between root account and your IAM user account. Okay. So user, groups, roles, and policies. These are 4 major elements of your IAM. Let us start discussing them one by one. So now let's say in my organization, I want to have a user. Okay. Let's say that is one of the user. Let's name this user as user 1. You can name it anything. Okay. What kind of access do you want to allow to this user? Let's say I want to allow management console access. That means users should be able to make changes or do any configuration changes or read any information using browser based access. That is your management console access. So here what I'm saying is console password for this user account auto generated, and this part I want your attention. Require password reset. I say user must create a new password at next sign in. Please pay attention. I have enabled this. So I say next permission. I say next permission. Okay. Can you differentiate between those access? We talked about it. What is your programmatic access? When you access your AWS resources using CLI SDK, right? Using your APIs. That is your programmatic access. When you access your AWS resources using your browser, we call that as a management console access. Why, any confusions? We talked about it some time back. So I defined username here. I've enabled management console access. I said user should change their password at the next sign in, right? So I say permission. Right now I'm not defining any permission to this user. I say next tag, next review, and I say create user. It says user has no permission. I'm aware. So I say create user. Now user account is created. I can send that user an email. I can send that user an email with all this credential information, or right now, since I'm going to use, so I'm downloading this file locally. So I close this. I open this credential file. Okay. The credential file has opened. So now I'll show you how to take access as a IAM user. So I go back to this credential file. I copy this URL. I paste it here. I opened an incognito or private window so that I can log in as a user one. Okay. Now I'm going to provide my user one access. I mean user one credentials. And I provide the password. This is auto-generated password. I'm providing that password here. And I say sign in. The moment I say sign in, it is asking me to enter or to reset my password. Guys, hold on. I'll tell you what is account ID, what is this number. Please hold on for a moment. Please hold on. It is asking for reset. So I'm supposed to provide my old password. Now I'm giving my new password. Okay. Because we enable that user must change password at next sign in, it is asking me to reset my password. So I confirm the password change. Now the moment I have done this user one, I can log in as a user one. And here if you notice, user one at 152297463776. Now what is this? This is my root account number. 152297463776. This is your root account number. Now, how do I differentiate if I have logged in as a root user or IAM user? If your name is directly reflecting that, that is your root account. If your name at the rate of some account number, that is your IAM user account. Every AWS account has a unique account number to ensure which user is mapped with this which account. They have given a unique AWS account number, right? Even in your account, you would notice my account and there would be a number associated. Are we all clear how to log in as your IAM user? And those who are asking what is this account ID, are we clear now what is this account ID? So I did nothing. I created a user account on the IAM console. I created an user account here. I use those credentials. I logged in using those credentials, nothing else. Everyone on the same page? Someone said, can you please repeat? So are we clear? We did not do anything out of box. So this particular user which we have accessed is your IAM user. How to differentiate if it is an IAM user or root user, right? If you see username at the rate of account, then that is your IAM user. If your name is directly reflecting, that is your root user. Now, while creating this user account, we did not give any other permission. We did not give any permission. So what does it mean? Now, if this user one tries to access, let's say S3, okay? If user one is trying to access S3 or any service, it would say this: you don't have permission. You don't have permission. If I say on EC2 or any service for that case, because right now this user does not have any kind of access. Right now, this user does not have any kind of access. right? So how do I ensure that this user has some accesses and privileges? I can go back to my root account. I can go back to my root account. I say this user account. Here in the permission section, I can say add permission. So attach some of the existing policy. We'll talk about what policies are as we progress in some time from now, right? Say attach existing policy. And let me say S3 read only access. Pay attention. I'm saying S3 read only access. Okay. Next review, add permission. Now with this user one, I have allowed read only access to my S3. So I click on this. Earlier it was saying error. Now it is not saying me error. Are we all clear? How to create user, how to assign permission on user level. So not only for S3 permission, you can define any permission of your choice depending on your business requirement. So what this will help you with? This will help you ensure right kind of users in your organization have right kind of access at right point of time. Are we all clear? Everyone? By default, your root user will have all the accesses. But on your user account, you can define what kind of access that you should have. Jaisimha, is your question answered? Cool. So this is how you create your user accounts, and this is how you define permissions on your user levels. So this way you can ensure in your organization, okay, in your organization, right kind of users have right kind of access at right point of time. How many root users account can I have as an organization? As an organization, you will have only one root user account. How many IAM user account can I have? So again, this is dealing with limitations. So approach, remember, recall, right? Go to Google, say AWS, name of the service here is IAM, say limitation. For each and every service, there are limitations, okay? But I want you guys to practice, may I get used to this approach. You need to use this keyword AWS followed by the name of the service followed by the keyword limitation, hit enter, and you'll have a document coming up on your screen. Now what is the maximum number of users can be created? What are the maximum number of permissions I can define? All those details. See, these are all very genuine questions, right? But all those details are available here. Okay, you can look into those details here. Is that good enough? Because remembering numbers, at least it's not my cup of tea is what I agree to. There are so many numbers to remember, and I personally feel that is not my cup of tea, right? So I usually depend on these documentations. Nagarjun, is your question answered? Can I move forward? Next, talking about your user groups. Now, what is user group? Why do we need it? Understand very clearly. As an organization, I have team of people. A lot of time it so happens that in a team, a lot of relevant accesses are given. Let's assume that I'm a team with around 50 users. Pay attention. Pay attention. Let's assume that I'm a team with 50 people managing servers. Now, do all the 50 users have all the access on the servers? Do all the 50 users, are they given super user access to the servers? What is your thought around this? Yes, no, let's be quick. In a team, if there are 50 users, so I want to understand from you guys, Do all the 50 users get super user access to the server? No, no. In a team, we have an hierarchy that is being followed very clearly. You have L1 users, you have L2 users, you have L3 users. L1 users are your junior resources. L2 users are your mid-level resources, and level 3 users are your senior resources. So level 3 user and level 1 users have different set of privileges. Agree with me? Your level 1 will have read-only access. Level 2 might have read and write access. Level 3 will have super user account access. Agree? Now let's assume that in my level 1, in my level 1, I have around 20 users. So can I say all my 20 users I would like to give similar kind of access? I would like to maintain a uniform access to all my 20 users who are part of my level 1 L1 team. Agree with me? Now one of the method is I create all those users. I add user, let's say user 2. Okay. I say user 2. I create this user. Okay. So I've created this user 2. Okay. I've created this user 2. Then I add create user 3. Okay. One of the method is I create individual users and I define permission on each user level. I create individual user and then I keep defining permission on each user level. But can I say it is really a tedious task if I have to define permission on each user level? And sometimes, there are rooms for manual error. I might give some additional privileges or I might end up giving some under privileges. So manual task is difficult. Maintaining uniformity is difficult, right? So to avoid running into all this kind of situation, what AWS says is you create user group. Set of users whom you want to give similar kind of permission. Okay. You set up a group, you create a group. Let's call this group as any name which you want to give. I'm saying L1 users for now. L1 users S3 access. Okay. I'm creating this group. Let's assume I want this user 2 and user 3 to be part of this group. Okay. And I can define permission on group level. Let's say S3. I want to give full access to this users. Okay. So I define S3 full access on group level. I have not defined on user level. I have defined this permission on group level. Now my group is created. Now it so happens that whatever is the permission you have defined on group level will automatically get inherited to all the users in that particular group. I don't have to manually define permissions on each user level. Are we all clear? What is the purpose of groups? So whatever permission I want to define, I defined on group level, I add user to that group. So all the users in that group will have the same permission. And this permission is inherited from the group level to all the users. So this will make your life much easier by not having to define permissions on each user level. Now in future, let's say you want to add some additional permission. Again, you don't have to do, add on each user level. Add that permission on group level and it will get inherited to all the users in that particular group. Right? So this is for ease of management. Now coming on to the next part of discussion. Your policies. Now what are policies? Now what is your general understanding when I say policy? Forget AWS, forget technicals. We use policy day in, day out, right? What is your definition of policy? Set of rules, okay? Rules, regulations. Agree? Yes or no? Policies are nothing but rules or predefined standards or predefined permissions or regulations. Okay. Before that, before that, there is a question telling that, let's say there is a user. This user is part of this group. Okay. Now, apart from the group level permission, I want to allow some additional permission on this user level. Not to all the user, but for this specific user. Let's assume this is an exception case where this user should have some additional permissions. Is it possible? Absolutely. I can add any permission directly also. Just because the user is part of group, it does not mean that user cannot have any additional permissions. Let's say I want to allow you EC2 full access to this user, add permission. So even though user is part of group, you can also directly attach permissions depending on your business requirement. So attach directly, attach from group. If you notice, this is a difference. Good that you asked this question, Vijay Lakshmi, right? So I wanted to make this clear. And one user can also be part of multiple groups. Okay. Are we clear? Can I move on now? Okay. Thank you. So now talking about policies. Policies, as you guys said, is nothing but well-defined rules and regulations. Agree? Now let's say policy, when attached to user, it becomes permission. I'll make it very simple for all of you to use, all of you to understand and move forward. Let's assume, okay, let's assume that in a gated community, the policy says that anyone who wants to use the party hall of the gated community should write a letter and hand it over to the builder at least 10 days in advance. Let's say if I am an apartment, if I am a resident of this gated community, and if I wish to use the party hall of the gated community, I should give a written intimation to the builder at least 10 days in prior. So can I say this is a policy? Yes or no? Now, if I as a resident, if I give that letter to the builder 10 days in advance, then can I say I have permission to use the party hall of the gated community? I have given a letter. Obviously, letter should be approved. If it is approved, then can I say I have permission to use that party hall? Yes or no? Obviously, yes. See, the policy or the rule is only rule unless and until it is not associated with any user. But the moment it gets associated with user, can I say it becomes a permission? If I as a user, if I follow that policy, if I adhere to that rule, then can I say I have permission? For example, the traffic rule says that I should wear helmet. While I am driving, I should wear helmet. That is the traffic rule. Now, if I wear helmet and drive, then can I say I have permission to drive? Yes. Guys, am I making sense? So when you say this user and when you're defining permissions on user level, right? These are nothing but you're attaching some policies so that it becomes as a permission to that user. Now S3 read only access or S3 full access, it's a policy. It's a policy which allows S3 full access. Now when this policy, when associated with user, it becomes permission. Now when you create your AWS account, by default in your AWS account, you would see a lot of policies available. Now these are your AWS managed policies. Any AWS account when you create, it will have set of default policies which are pushed by default whenever your AWS account is created. These are referred to as AWS managed policies. These policies cannot be edited, cannot be deleted. You can only use this policy as a user because these are completely managed by AWS. Now you feel, Prashant, you know what? These AWS defined policies are not very granular. I want more granular level control. I want to allow granular level access, right? Is it possible that I can create my own policy? Yes. You are allowed to create your own policies. That is referred to as customer managed policies. When you are allowed to create your own policy, we call that as a customer managed policy. So click on create policy, right? By default, you are expected to write this policy in a JSON format. But now if you say, Prashant, I'm not good with JSON, not a problem. AWS have visual editor where you don't want to write anything in JSON. You just, select on GUI, AWS on your behalf will write it on JSON format, just like your S3 bucket policy. Now here, select for which service do you want to write a policy. For which AWS service you want to write a policy. Let's say I want to write a policy for S3. Select that. Now in AWS, there are 4 levels of access mainly. Okay. List, read, tag, write, and permission management. Main level of access are 4: list, read, tag, and write. Now what is list? What is read? What is tag? What is write? List is nothing but allowing you to just see the information. List out the details. How many users accounts are there? That is listing. If I say user, if I'm able to just see, okay, these are the list of users, nothing else. I cannot check what user 1 has, what kind of permission user 1 has, what kind of permission user 2 has, what kind of permission user 3 has. I cannot check that. That is your listing. Read. I'm able to get to understand, okay, user 1 has this permission, user 2 has this permission, user 3 has this permission. That is your read. Tag. Tag is nothing but for the purpose of identification. Okay. I tag my users, I tag my services. Okay. We'll talk more about tagging as we progress. Don't worry. Write. Write is allowing you to make any kind of changes. You can add user, you can delete user, you can modify permission, you can add permission, you can remove permission. That is your write. These are major 4 level access in your AWS, right? Apart from that, for S3, you have permission management because you have, access to your S3 bucket. So you can define who can define those kind of permissions on your S3 bucket level, right? Who can define bucket policy, who can add bucket policy, who can delete bucket policy, who can define ACLs and all of that, right? Now, under each of these options or each of these action level, there are a lot of options available. Now, see the default AWS policy, when I say read only access, it is allowing all these actions. It is allowing all this action. Now, I don't want to allow all this action. Okay. I don't want to allow all this action under read. I want to allow user only access certain small thing. Let's say user should be allowed to perform only one of the tasks, get bucket website or get object, right? Or let's say just get bucket website. User, out of all these read options, I want my user to have access to only this option, only one option under read. So in those cases, I would use this kind of custom policies. Now further, I have a choice. Do you want to get, this get bucket website? Do you want this policy to be applicable only for specific AWS bucket? If yes, give that ARN. Or all the buckets of S3. I say all the buckets of S3. Then I can define conditions. Conditions what? Allow access only if the user is coming from this range of source IP address. Allow access if multi-factor authentication is enabled. So these are conditions, right? So by defining all of this, I can create my own custom policy. Then this policy can be associated with my users. Now what is tagging? Please understand, when you go to airport, they tag your luggages. Yes or no? When you go to airport, they tag your luggages. What is the purpose of tagging your luggages? Why do they do this tagging of your luggages in airports? Identification purpose. Agree? So similarly, understand here, in your infrastructure, can I say you have your prod server, you have database server, you have prod server, you have dev server, you have QA server, and so on. In your infrastructure, you can have multiple environments like your prod, your dev, UAT, QA, all of that. For each of these environment, can I say you can have different set of permissions and policies? Now let's say I want this user, pay attention. I want this user to have access to all the resources which have some similar tags. Then I can enable tagging. Are we clear? So now I define this permission. I say next tag. I say next review. If I want, I can add a tag here. This policy is prod S3 bucket access. So this is a tag. So I can use this tag and I can define policies in future. Then it will ask me to give a name. So let's call this as demo 01 S3. Okay. And I create the policy. That's it. My demo 01 S3 has been created. Now I can go to user, select that user, add permission, right? Attach an existing policy, demo 01 S3, next review, add permission. Next review, add permission. Now when this policy associated with user, it became what? Permission. Now, there was a very interesting question someone asked me now. Now this user has read-only access and then user has demo 01 S3 access also. So both are conflicting because under read-only we had so many options. Okay, so that is allowed by this policy, and demo 01 S3 we allowed only one small part under read-only. Yes or no? So both are kind of conflicting policy. Agree with me? Yes, both are kind of conflicting policies. Now, which policy will take effect? Demo 01 or Amazon S3 read only? So let me tell you, not only for this case, for any case, always remember, if the policy is between allow and allow, pay attention. If it is allow policy, then the highest level of privileges will take its effect. If it is an allow policy, like this is also allowing something, this is also allowing something, then the highest level will take the priority. So this will take priority. So user will be able to do all the job which are defined under this policy. But in case if it is between allow and deny, then your deny will have precedence. Are we clear? Let's say policy 1 says allow read only, policy 2 says allow read and write. Pay attention. Let's say demo 01 says write access. For a moment, let's assume that. Okay, this policy allows write access and this policy allows read only access. So now it is a conflict of interest between these two policies, because policy 1 is saying read only, policy 2 is saying read and write. So both the policies are allowing access, they are not denying, right? So which will take priority or which will be taking effect? Here, read and write, the highest level of permission will take the effect. Are we clear? If it is between allow and allow, always the highest level of privileges will take the effect. In case, okay, in case if it is between this policy is deny and this policy is allow, then your deny will take precedence. Then it does not make sense for us giving a separate demo 1 permission. Absolutely yes. So if you wanted a granular control, why did you open a bigger channel? So the logic is that simple. You wanted people to come via rear entrance. Pay attention. You wanted people to enter your gated community only through rear entrance. Then why did you keep your main entrance open? If you don't want people to come from main entrance, then don't keep it open. If it is open, people will come via main entrance also. Am I making sense? So are we clear? What is your user groups and policies? Can I move forward? Is everyone's question answered so far? Thank you. Thank you. Now moving on to the next part of discussion, which is your roles. Discussing roles. Now, what is roles? Roles are nothing but when you want AWS to perform certain tasks on your behalf. When you want AWS to perform certain tasks on your behalf, that is where you will use roles. Now, pay attention to this. When I say when you want AWS to perform certain tasks on your behalf, AWS by means AWS services. Okay, when I say AWS, I'm referring to AWS services. When you want AWS services to perform certain tasks on your behalf, that is where we would require roles, right? Now, understand very clearly where do we use this kind of situations. Okay, roles can be defined for no, this is not your admin role, user role, it is different from it. Please pay attention. It is not your admin role, user role, and all of that. Pay attention to this. Now let's assume I have a server. On this server, I have an application ABC which is running, and I have this cloud, S3 storage. By default, the server is also running on cloud, and S3 obviously is on my cloud only, right? So this application ABC, right, is generating some application logs, something like this. The default behavior is this log should be stored in my server itself, yes or no. That is the default behavior. The logs will be stored in my server only because application is hosted on this server. So the default functionality is the logs generated by this application will be stored on this server. Now, my business says that the logs generated by your application should not be stored on server. It should be stored on your external storage like your S3 or some other external storage. It should be stored on some external storage. Now, can I say in our on-premises also we had this kind of requirements? Yes or no? In our on-premises also we had this kind of requirement. This is not new to cloud. In our on-premises, I'll tell you what we used to do. In our on-premises, we used to write some custom automation script. And in that script, we used to provide our administrator credentials or have some service account created. We used to provide that service account credentials. Yes or no? That was the practice which we followed in our on-premises. And that script was saved on the server itself. Pay attention. I repeat myself. In our on-premises, for this kind of requirement, we used to write some custom scripts. And onto that custom scripts, we used to enter the credentials, either administrator credentials, or if there is service account created, that service account credentials were written on, were stored in that script, and that script was stored on your server in your on-premises. Now, all of you guys, I want your suggestion to understand this better. Is it a good practice from a security standpoint of view that you keep your credentials on your server? Do you think it is a good practice? Let it be your service account credential or any credentials for that case. Do you think it is a good practice from security standpoint of view? No. No. It is not at all a recommended or a good practice from a security standpoint of view. Right? So if you have similar kind of requirement in cloud, if you have similar kind of requirement in cloud, you don't have to keep your credentials stored. Instead, to that particular AWS service, you allow some additional role, whatever task you want to do. Like let's say you want the server to be able to access your storage, just allow some additional privileges to this particular server. Just like how you define, if I am a user and you want me to do some job in your infrastructure, you give me relevant permission, yes or no? Similarly, now instead of me, you want this server to do that job. So can I say that server will require relevant permissions? Agree? So that can be defined using your IAM role. That relevant additional permissions can be defined using IAM role. Are we all clear what your IAM role is? Can I move forward? Can we have a quick demo now? Yes. Cool. Cool. So as part of this demo, please don't get panicked. As part of this demo, I'm going to create a server. I'm not going to talk in detail about how to create server and stuff right now. because when we come to our next module, we will discuss about it. Okay, in our module 4, I'll talk in detail on how to launch a server in cloud. For now, I would need your liberty. For now, I would need your permissions to quickly launch a server in my AWS infrastructure, right? We'll talk in step by step what is each and every parameter of this, right, in our upcoming session when we discuss our servers, right? For now, just allow me this liberty to quickly launch a server, right? So detailed discussion about launch procedure, what are each parameter, will be discussed in our upcoming session. So now I've initiated a creation of server. Okay, while the server is coming up, I also want to do one small job here. I want to quickly create an S3 bucket so that you will have something to, see. Just creating a bucket here. Now my server is in running status. So I will take access of my server. This is a Linux machine which I have launched. So I'm accessing my server using my SSH client. I hit enter here. I say yes. So this is my Linux machine. This is my Linux server. Okay. This is my Linux server. Now let's assume from this server, I want to access my storage. So I say AWS S3 LS. Do you notice it is asking me for credential? Here, if you notice, it is asking me for my credential. Yes or no? And we were talking some time back that it is not a good practice from a security standpoint of view to have your credentials stored locally on the server. Agree? Now the requirement of my business is this server should be able to access my S3 storage. But at the same time, my business says you cannot keep credentials configured on the server. You cannot store credentials on the server. So how do we fix this issue, or how do we address this? Go to your IAM, click on roles, say create role. Now for which service should I be creating role? Any thoughts? Which service? EC2. The service which I want to give some additional privileges for that service. I can create role for any service. Okay, there are almost every AWS service you can associate role with. Right now in our use case, I want role to be created for EC2. Now what permission should I define to my EC2? What permissions should I define to my EC2? S3 access, S3 read access, because I want my EC2 instance or my server to be able to access my S3. Yes. So can I say this EC2 should have S3 read only access, right? So here I am looking for that relevant permission, S3 read only access. Next tag, next tag, next review, give a name, right? Give a name. Let's say demo 01 EC2. Create this role. Now my role is created. Now my role is created. Come back to your EC2 instance. Okay. So far I have not associated that role with my server. So it is asking me for credential. Now select this server, say action, say security,
say modify IAM role. Right now there is no role, so it is asking me for credential. Now I'm associating this role which I just created, demo01 EC2, and I save this. Now come back here. Is it able to give me the outcome without asking for credentials? Everyone, am I making sense? What is the purpose of roles? How it works? Now there is a question, can we not directly attach policy to your services? Can we not attach, instead of roles, can we not directly attach these policies to your services? No, you cannot. You'll have to create roles. In roles, you define your policies, your permissions, and associate with your respective services. Madesh, are we clear? In which real time scenario will this be needed? So Nimai, understand, whenever you want your AWS resources, see, instead of users, you want your services to do some job for you, any kind of automations, right? There, this role will come into help. Anything which needs to be automated, and you want your server, your database, your storage to have some additional privileges. Instead of creating service account, storing credentials, you don't want to make it vulnerable, right? That is where you can leverage this roles. Are we all clear? Can I move forward? With this, basically, we have completed the 4 major terms of your IAM: user, groups, roles, and policies. Right? So now moving on to the next part of discussion. Now, let's assume that I have a requirement. Understand this requirement. It is must in every organization. Let's assume that as an organization, I have a requirement that all my IAM user should change their password in every 15 days. They should change. It's not that they can, they should. And I want to ensure the minimum password size is 10 characters. I want to ensure that they should use uppercase, lowercase, alphanumeric, non-alphanumeric, number, all of this in their password. If I want to enforce all of this, and how do I ensure all my users are adhering to this, right? Obviously, this is a security requirement. Yes or no? I want my users to rotate their credential. I want to ensure my user has a, strong password combination, right? These are all common generic requirement from every organization. Agree with me? Now in AWS IAM, how do I ensure this can be enforced to all my users? So for that purpose, click on account setting. Okay, allow me one moment. Click on account setting. You have something called as password policy. Click on change password policy. So here you can define minimum. I want 10 characters, say 10 characters. I want my users to use uppercase, lowercase, one number, one non-alphanumeric. Select all of this, enable all of this. Enable password expiry. I want the password should expire every 15 days. If I'm creating password today, in next 15 days, the password should get expired and I should be forced to change my credential. Say this. Allow users to change their own password if you want them to do that. Prevent password reuse. I don't want my users to use old password. They should not be using password in repetition. Let's say password this month was ABC at 123. Password next month is XYZ at 123. Now next month and thereafter again, if the user is asked to change, user should not be allowed to use ABC at 123. I say user should not be allowed to change, use last 10 password. Save changes. Now this will enforce this on all the users in my account. Now let's say I log out from user one account. You will notice something different now. I say log back in. User one. I give my password. Here you see this banner. Days until your password expire. Yes. So can I say the rule is imposed on all my users? If I see this banner, that successfully means that rule is imposed. Now what if the user is on leave for 15 days and user has not updated the password, or user has not changed the password, or what if the user has forgot the password, right? So all those are definitely use cases. So you can come back here, whichever user it is, go to that user, right? Let's say this user, click on security credential. You have console password, say manage. So at any point of time, you can auto generate a new password, or you can define your own new password and make the changes. The choice is yours. In case if user forgets the password, generate an auto generate, click on this auto generated password and say user must create a new password and apply. So user password can be reset. Are we all clear with this? Can I move forward? Interesting concept so far. Yes. Great. Now come back. Okay, come back. Now, if you would have noticed, this user said aws.amazon.com, gave username and entered password and was allowed to log in. Okay. User was allowed to log in. From security standpoint of view, as I said, if your credentials are robbed, right? From security standpoint of view, if your credentials are robbed, obviously it is a bigger risk. So how do I prevent, or how do I rest assured that even if you know my credentials, I'm not worried, you'll not be able to log in? How do I rest assured, right? So there is something called as MFA, multi-factor authentication. What is this multi-factor authentication? Understand very clearly. It is a two-factor authentication. Now it is not only going to rely, it is not going to just rely on your username and password. Apart from that, you'll have to enter something kind of OTP. Okay, you'll have to enter some OTP kind of thing to log into your account. How do I enable that? Select that user, security credentials. You have assigned MFA devices. Say manage. You have something called as virtual MFA. So to work with your virtual MFA, all you require is some applications like your, Google Authenticator, LastPass Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, any of this application that needs to be installed on your mobile phone. You need to install any of this application, either of this, not everything. Okay. Either Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, any of this application, have this installed on your mobile phone. Then say continue here, right? The moment you say continue, it will take you to page like this. So I'm taking my mobile phone. Okay. And I already have this Google Authenticator kind of thing installed in my mobile phone. I already have this application installed in my mobile phone. So I'll say show QR code. It shows this QR code. I should scan this QR code using that application, okay, on my mobile. So I've scanned this QR code. The moment I scan this QR code, it will generate some codes on my screen. I'm entering those codes. I'm supposed to enter two continuous code to register my mobile phone. Okay. I'm registering. To register my mobile phone, I need to enter two continuous code. It takes 15 seconds. The code 1 is generated. For code 2 be generated, second code to be generated, it would take 15 seconds. Right? So this is my second code. And I say assign MFA. Done. Now my mobile is registered with my account. Now what will happen is, let us wait for this to be completed. It is taking some time. Why so much time? Why is it taking so long? Give me 1 second. So I'll do the same job once again. So scan my QR code. I punch the credentials. So I'm waiting for the second one to be generated. Yeah, done. So now I have enabled MFA. I've enabled MFA on this device, on this account, right? MFA is enabled. Now I'll show you what difference does it make. Now let's say I sign out. Okay. I say log back in. You will notice how MFA works. Okay. I'm obviously supposed to enter my password, but that is not all now. That is not all now. It will require MFA code. And where is that MFA code getting generated? That MFA code is in my mobile phone. So if you want, even if you know my credentials, will you be able to log into my account? No. And very good thing about this is it is not a static code. Every 15 seconds, the code keeps changing. So you cannot even guess. Every 15 seconds, the code keeps changing. So obviously you cannot change, you cannot even guess, and you cannot enter any random code. Are we clear how MFA works and how MFA will help you to prevent from any kind of credential robbery related issues? So that was about your IAM user management. What if our mobile phone is not there? So can we change the MFA policy? Absolutely. At any point of time, you can disable. At any point of time, you don't want, let's say you lost your mobile phone. Come back to the user account. Okay. Same security credential, assigned MFA device, say manage, say remove. That's it. Clear? So now moving on to the next part of discussion. Which is about MFA. Is it applicable for all the users? Yes, it is. For every user, you can enable MFA. Will you cover about firewalls? So Vivek, let us right now focus on this topic. I saw your question, okay, but purposely I did not answer your question, okay. Am I audible? Am I audible? Someone says I'm not audible. Nimai, please check at your end. So Vivek, let us just focus right now on this particular topic, okay. I saw your question already. Guys, I have seen your questions. I'm continuously seeing your question. At times, I purposely don't answer certain questions because I know either we are going to discuss that question eventually, or you know, at some time and point of time in future, we will be discussing that. Okay. Why I sometimes don't answer this question? Because that will unnecessarily break the flow. So please don't get me otherwise. I'm seeing your questions continuously. Okay. But there are certain reasons why I did not do that. Okay, now answering a couple of questions before we move forward. Okay, one by one, I'm answering everyone's question. Question regarding Active Directory, we'll talk about it. Let's wait for a moment or two. Towards the end, I'll talk about Active Directory. Do we have to set up a group level MFA? No. You cannot set up group level MFA, Venkat. It has to be on individual user level. User, after giving permission read-only access, can user will be able to do MFA by themselves? Yes, provided they have relevant permissions. When I say relevant permissions, they should be given relevant IAM permissions so that they can set up this. Like how, remember, user was given a permission to change their own password initially. If you would have noticed, initially when we create our user account, user were given permissions to change their own password. Yes or no? So similar kind of permission has to be given so that they can set up their own MFA. MFA can be enabled for user based on environment like prod user groups or something. No, you cannot enable it on group level. It has to be on user level. It should be on the user level. So you can force this MFA on all the users. You can have policy to force this MFA on all the users. Am I making sense? Yes. Guys, am I audible? Why couple of people says I'm not audible, whereas the majority says I'm audible? So those who are not able to hear me, I just sent a voice message. I mean, I just sent a text message because I'm not sure if it is connection at your end, but people here have continuously confirmed that I'm clearly audible. My voice is loud and clear to all. Guys, everyone, Now, now for remote users, MFA cannot be assigned. Why do you think? When you say remote users, what do you mean by remote users? Firstly, what is your definition of remote user? All of us are remote users only. All of us are remote users, right? How users will scan the QR code? The same way user user will be allowed, user should be allowed permission to set up their MFA. There is no other way. There is no different way. Users should be allowed to have set up their own MFA so that they can scan their QR code and they can register their mobile phone. Why any confusions, my dear friends? Why confused with this? Is MFA compulsory to be used? No, it is your choice as an organization. You can decide. If you want, enable it. If you don't want, don't enable it. Does the code, MFA code will be generated by registered mobile? Say I have authenticator installed and it generates code every 15 seconds. Can't this be used to log in other user ID? Absolutely no. Your MFA, your MFA is, you know, tied up with every user. If I am saying user one and I'm registering a mobile phone, so this mobile phone is integrated with this particular user or registered with this particular user. Are we clear? If I'm not logging in an MFA enabled in mobile and mobile is lost, I hope root users can reset. I just showed that also. You can always come back, say management, remove that. Can log in with user one, then configure MFA? Yes, yes, yes. Provided that user has that relevant permissions. Like remember, when I created user account, the user was allowed to change password, right? So user had that permission. Similarly, user should have permission to set up their MFA and user can do this job. Are we clear? Great, great. So, I think we hardly have 5 minutes. Okay. If 500 users, how to enable MFA? Okay. I think you did not understand the purpose of MFA. As an organization, you don't have to enable MFA for all the 500 users. Individual user have to register their mobile phones. If I'm a user one of an organization, I will register my MFA. I'll scan this MFA code using my mobile phone. User two will do for himself. User three will do for himself or herself. Each and every user has to do this, not your administrator. Are we clear? If I need in a compulsory action, say like password change, no, it is not there under it is not there under this option. You don't have MFA as one of the option. Okay. So if you want it compulsory, then in your custom policy, okay. But in your custom policy, let's say I'm creating a custom policy. So in my custom policy, I can define this as one of the condition that user will be allowed to access resources. Let's say I want to allow access to someone to S3, right? So I say all S3 action would be allowed, okay? Or any specific action, I can define that. And in one of the condition, I can say MFA required. So user will be forced to enable MFA. Are we clear? All right. All right. So I think, okay. Can you please log in with user and show me how can set up his MFA? So we would need a policy. Allow me 1 second. I'll create a policy. Okay. So we need to find out that relevant MFA policy here, or relevant create virtual MFA. Okay. So I'm creating this policy. Pay attention. Pay attention. I'm creating this policy and I say all resources. Okay. Next tag, next review, demo MFA, create policy. Right. So as a user one, if you pay attention, right now MFA is not enabled. I have disabled MFA. There is no assigned MFA device. Now in the permission, I'm adding that permission. Attach an existing policy, demo MFA. Next review, add permission. Done. Now let's come back here. This is my user account. This is my user account, right? So I want to set up MFA for myself. So what I'm going to say, IAM on my user account, I am enabling it. And okay, before that, I just want to show you, because previously I showed you that we had MFA enabled. I say log back in. And you will notice MFA is disabled. Okay, it is directly allowing me access. MFA is disabled. And in this policy, I'll have to update few more things. I'm sorry. I just allowed only one access type. So I say IAM. Policy take effect. List account. Okay. I have to allow all of this in my policy here. This is the policy.
1 second. So I need to allow some listing. I need to allow some right. Policy, save changes. Let's see if that is the required access. I need to ensure that user have required access to make these changes. Okay. So user one. Notice this. I am on user one account. Okay. Security credentials. Manage MFA. Virtual MFA. Continue. Scan this QR code. I'm gonna scan this using my mobile phone. Scanned it. Waiting for the second code to be generated. Enable MFA device on the resources. Okay, maybe I need to add one more permission level in the policy. So you need to create that relevant policy. The logic is that simple, guys. So maybe under the actions, I'll need to filter out. Under right, there is some more relevant. Since I'm creating on the fly, I did not see a lot of details here. Okay, so I just create virtual MFA. What was the permission missing? Enable MFA device. Okay. So maybe once you have that all the relevant permissions attached, user will be able to do this. I assume that this should be good enough. Now let me see. What is the exact permission? Back here, come back here on the policy, edit policy. Give me 1 second. So in the second column, yeah, enable MFA device. Correct. So I guess now it should be. Previous entity already exists. So is it enabled or what? 1 second. May refresh. So guys, it's all about the policy. I'll try to figure out which exact policy, but how to set up this is the procedure. Vijayalakshmi, you need to allow that relevant permissions and it should be possible. So right now I've not checked out what exact policy would be needed. So that is why we are struggling here. But the procedure is this. I hope this makes sense. You can try with any different user, different name. It is all the same. No need to log out and log in to get this reflected. To set up, you need that relevant permission. Okay. Please understand the procedure. If that relevant permissions are attached with the user, user will be able to do this job. The logic is that simple. Right? Now, if anyone has any questions, doubts, queries,
Couple of people had some audio related issue. So I'm not sure why, because majority of the guys said that they are able to hear me absolutely fine. So what I'm going to do is I'll raise this with Edureka support team. Okay. That but to raise this, I would like to know the list of users who had some audio related issue today. Because this GoToWebinar tool and all of this is managed by them. I don't have any control over it. So to raise this with Edureka support team and to get it addressed, I would need to know the list of users who had this problem. Okay, Vivek says there was some Airtel problem in few areas. Okay. So Vivek says it could be because of that. Okay. All right. I'll any which ways, make a list so that I can reach out to them and see if there is any technical glitch from their end. We don't run into those kind of situation again. So Rajaguru said that he had some issue. John also had experienced some glitch today. John Victor. Okay. So I'm just taking the list of users. I'm sorry, that should be Victor. So guys, those who had some problems today with the audio, if you can let me know the names, I can take it down, take it up with the Edureka team. Bithika. Okay. Because I remember 4-5 people. Even I think Tapsi had some problem. I saw the message. Tapsi Roy. Yes. So some 4-5 people. I remember you had some issues. So don't worry. I'll have it raised with the Edureka support team to get this resolved or get this fixed so that we don't run into this kind of situation. Okay. All right. Now, if anyone has any question, do let me know. If no question, I think, yes, we are done with our today's session. Thank you so much for all your time and patience. Right. I'll see you all tomorrow. Till then, bye-bye. Take care. Now, if anyone has question, can stay back. If you have other commitments, feel free to continue with it. Recorded sessions will be fine, right? Absolutely. Yes, Guru. Yesterday, we did replication in S3, but not in sync. Is there a way that we can synchronize our buckets? No, we cannot. Prasanna, are you there? You had some question. Prasanna, you had some question. Then there are a couple of more folks. Someone was asking about the Active Directory. Are you guys there who had those relevant questions? If yes, then can I have your responses? Can I get your questions now to address them one by one? Yes, someone raised a question before the session started. Yes. What was it about? Could you please shoot your question once again so that I can address it? I could not create bucket through CLI. Okay. Did you check your access key, secret access key? Did you define the region? Yes. Okay. Do you have that set up right now? You have access key and secret access key generated for a user with all the relevant permissions. Yes. All right. Help me with your name because your name is reflecting as Edureka guest. I'm gonna quickly make you presenter to see the issue. Okay, Rajaguru. Your email address, please, because I'm not able to see your name. Is it srguruprofile@gmail? Something like that.
All right, making you presenter. Quickly present your screen. You're the presenter now. Please present your screen so that I can look into the issue. You're able to see your screen now. Please show me the, first open your command prompt. Can you say AWS minus minus version? Okay. Say AWS configure. AWS, it is ASW. Hmm. Hit enter. Okay. Hit enter. Okay. Hit enter. Okay. Enter, enter. Cool. Okay. Next, can you take me to your IAM account? Just say aws.amazon.com. That should be fine. Yeah, sign into the console here. QC22X5. P4HYSR. By 8. Account with this email address does not exist, it says. Seven S2. IAM in the search. You don't have users. You don't have any user. Click on create user. Let it be. Add user. Obviously, if you don't have user, it will not work. Let's say any name, user one, user two, anything. Say programmatic access. No, programmatic access. Next permission. Attach existing policy. No need to attach to group. Attach existing policy. Search S3. Full access. Next tags, create user. Create user. Download the credential files. Okay, copy this access key from here itself. No need to close this window. Copy this access key. No. Here itself we have the access key ID. Yeah, copy this. Come back to your command prompt. Say AWS configure. Yeah, enter. Paste this. Enter. Click on secret access key on your console show. Copy that. Yeah, show. Copy. Paste that here. Enter. Enter. Say JSON. Enter. Now say AWS S3. AWS S3 space MB space S3 colon / any name. Let's say demo 0406, something like that. Hit enter. Let's ensure that the name is unique. Okay. Okay. Bucket with same name already exists. So give any other name, something like that, or make 2 more digits so that you know. That's it. Go back to your S3 console. You have a bucket with this name. Clear? Cool.
Thanks.
Not a problem. Anytime. Great. So I'll take back the presenter once again, presenter's role. Here you go. All right. Anyone has any other questions, doubts, queries? Something you want more clarity about? Any questions, doubts from anyone? Guys, a quick check. Any questions? If no further question, then I think, yes, we are done for the day. Thank you so much for all your time and patience. I really appreciate it. I would request each and everyone to please ensure you mark your feedbacks without fail, right? And today, the folks who had audio related issue, I would request you to please mark that under your class rating. Please ensure you mark that under your class rating, not under your instructor rating. Because if you mark it under instructor rating, I'll not be able to do anything. It should be part of your class rating because entire infrastructure of GoToWebinar on all of that is managed by Edureka team, right? So with that note, thank you so much. We'll see you all tomorrow. Till then, bye-bye. Take care. Wish you all a great day ahead, guys. Signing off for the day.